Hey gang, welcome to Computer Graphics. Today is sprint review or stand-ups day. So each of the teams is going to give a brief 5 to 7 minute overview of their progress over the last 2 weeks. So the first one we're going to go in reverse alphabetical order this time. So the first team is they call themselves We and Ed, but we really know it's Weed. The Weed 3090 Ti group. They'll be the first up. Why don't you guys take it away? If someone needs screen share and you can't screen share, let me know. Oh, looks like you're able to screen share, so that's good. Okay, take it away, guys. You're muted, Eric, by the way.
Hey guys, we are the We and Ed 3090 Ti group. I am Noah Broussard. With me I have Brian, Ross, and Jason. So for room 2, what we've been working on since the last time we met was we added in 15 art installations as well as the hints to actually get those art installations. So when we go to the demo, you'll see that when you walk into room 2, you can see 15 different stands with hints on them. Ooh. Is going to show you it, maybe not. 15 different stands with hints on them, and those hints are somewhat like a crossword puzzle. They'll give you a 4-letter word that you enter into the MAM, and when you enter that into the MAM, it will reveal the statue for that thing, and those statues have some kind of code between the 15 of them that will give you the final answer to get out of the room. When we go into it, you'll notice that some of them are still a little bit wonky with texture. We've been working on the textures for the statues, but that's something we still need to finish. Now I'll pass it off to Brian for room 3.
So room 3, last time we were here, we actually didn't have it filled out, but it's supposed to be filled with a bunch of mirrors and clocks. We still actually haven't got the clock assets in yet, but we've got all the mirrors and they reflect properly. The way they work is you've got like your screen, and there's a camera that points through the screen, and it reflects. The screen reflects everything the camera sees in front of it. I figured out how to do this from this tutorial we have linked here. We can share the link if anyone wants to do it as well. It's really useful for things that are reflective. There was one issue we were having is that this actually like really tanks the frame rate. Because each camera will be constantly updating every frame for a different point of view. So we end up having like 5 or 6 different points of view going like for the entire Unreal, which actually tanks it super hard. We found out there's a way you can actually go through and make it so they only update like once you start up the program for the game. So we're going to be doing that, and that'll hopefully be a good fix to our frame rate issues, although it will cause other issues, like you won't be able to see yourself walking in front of the mirror, which we still have yet to figure out how to do. Ross?
All right, and our plans for next week, even though we don't have a presentation next week at all, since we do have break, we're going to be working a lot over next week. And so our plans for that is to get the textures for room 2 finished, since we said before that they're not quite working properly. Then we want to finish up rooms 3 and 4, get those completed, or at least for the most part done, so that we can decide on room 5, because room 5, we haven't really figured out all the technical aspects of it yet. And so we're not quite sure if this will be very possible or what kind of changes we'll have to make for it. So we want to make sure that we have ample time to get room 5 completed for the last week. And then we'll move on to the demo from here.
Alrighty, so let me just go ahead and get over to room 2, because that's where most of the changes have been done for this week. So in room 2, we did add all these cards with the hints on them, and they actually display the actual text for the hint when you load in games. So let me actually just go ahead and play Okay, so when you walk into this room, now we have all the placards with hints on them, and each hint is just for each object that will be viewable on this pedestal. So you'll come over, and in order to solve the hint, you'll put it in on the MAM on the door over here. So for example, this one here is a baking device, that's the hint. The object itself is an oven. And then when you correctly get when you correctly enter the hint, the object appears on the stand. Now, there's a couple issues with this. So first of all, as we already mentioned, like some of the textures for the objects aren't working when we actually load them in once you correctly get the hint. And then number two is that having to go all the way back to the MAM and enter this, especially at the walking speed that we have, is somewhat tedious, especially because we have 15 of these columns with objects on them that will be part of the puzzle. So we'll probably have to figure out some way to either make a keypad like right underneath the hint, or just some way to make this faster. But the answer to the room is still the same as the last time. And now we have the mirror room. So the main changes that we made for the mirror room were.
Can you remind me one more time? I understand the hint oven, the object appears, but how do you get out of the room? What's the overall puzzle?
Okay, so
I can take over for that.
Go ahead.
So whenever you fill out all 15 things, you can take the first letter of each object for each row. So it's going to spell out Congo, bonga, and snare, which are all types of drums. So the final answer is drum.
Got you. Okay. And the user just has to figure that out on their own, or that's...
it's just something they'll have to figure out on their own.
Okay. But each row is 4 then.
Each row is 5.
I guess. Each 5. OVEN, but that's 4 letters, right? Oh, drum. Okay, yeah. Okay. That makes sense. That's interesting. Okay, good. Yep, got it. Thank you.
We'll probably need some way to actually track for the user, like what all they've solved, because it's not exactly obvious the first time around. It might be a little difficult, but the gameplay mechanics aren't really the focus.
I would get lost after all the objects appeared and I'm still stuck in the room. But of course, that's the fun of it, right? So.
All right. So the bulk of the work that was done this week in room 3 was getting these mirrors working. Now, as Brian mentioned, you aren't actually able to see yourself in the mirrors, and the reason for that is because we don't have them updating on every single frame, and we don't have them capturing the actual player character. But the mirrors are reflective. Like, the mirrors are properly reflective. And the way that we did this was that we have these mirror textures and we have these cube render targets. So what we did is we took these scene capture cubes and we put them relatively normal to the actual mirror asset. And then our texture target was the reference for the mirror texture. And now the way that this works is that at least with the capture cube, is that it will like capture a 3D like reflection of what the camera sees in front of it. But the problem was that this updates on every frame, and when you have all these 3D points of view, it causes quite a bit of FPS lag. So if I actually turn on the capture every frame, you can see my FPS is already tanked from roughly 120 to about 16 just by adding one of the cameras in. So in order for us to capture the actual player movement, from the little bit of research that I've done, we're going to need to use a 2D scene capture instead, which will mean we'll actually have to redo how we mapped our textures for the cube render targets. But that's something that we can work on in next week. I see there are a couple of questions. Can the camera see other render targets and render that, or will they just be blank?
I assume you mean like, can you see like from one mirror into another mirror and then back into it on yours? You can see like if you angle like here, you can kind of see like it does have the reflection. It's a little bit weird because the way it has to capture it from the camera. So unless the cameras are like pointed at each other, they won't show each other like doing the infinite loop thing you get with if you have like two mirrors behind each other or facing each other.
Also, the other thing is that since we don't have the cameras updating on every frame, it basically just takes like what the camera has in front of it, like the image of the camera in front of it, and that's it. That's all it displays. It won't like keep bouncing back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And just so you guys know, because this is relative to or relevant to what we're going to be doing on Friday and Monday, is we're going to be talking about ray tracing. And ray tracing is the general solution to this problem, but it's still so expensive that it tends not to be implemented in game engines. So.
And then the last thing that we have for this room is last night we did actually figure out one of the ways that we can. So the original way to solve this puzzle was that we have all these mirrors and clocks in the room. We have our clock asset, but we haven't actually put it in the room yet. And all the clocks have different times on them, but there's one clock that is in a mirror that you can see in a mirror that's not actually in the room. Brian, if you could explain how we actually plan to like implement that mirror.
So basically, since these mirrors actually only display what the camera is seeing, we thought maybe we'd have a camera pointing into a different room that's not actually in where the player can get to, outside, and then you have that like showing a clock that's not actually in the room, and so you'd walk by and be like, hey, that's not actually in the room, like this doesn't look right. And then you go, hey, look, maybe this clock is different from it. And then you'd actually realize, hey, this clock's not even in the room. And then that's the actual time you have to do for the code. So
essentially we can put like a camera outside and we could have it, looking at something else. But when we actually go into the room and we have one of the mirrors, the camera, it's like, say if we wanted to, we move the camera for this mirror outside and it was looking at something else. What you see on this reflective texture on the mirror is actually what the camera outside is seeing.
Yeah, this is fantastic, guys. Really, y'all are doing a great job. For time purposes, we're gonna move on if that's okay, unless there's any last thought we need to get out there real quick.
I mean, the only other thing we have on our presentation is all of the different assets that we use, the references to where we got them, but.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So I think we will move on. But like I said, you guys are doing great work. This is really, this looks very professional, and it looks fun too, which is cool. Is there a hub of some kind? I know about GitHub, but is there a place where you can like post little indie games like this that have been developed just to get feedback from the community? How about we think about that, all of us as a group? It looks like Evan's got an idea there, because I think a game like this, I think it might get some interest. It's cool. Okay, so let's move on to the next presentation, Nature's End. I think you guys have something for us. Feel free, take it away.
Hey, Kyle, are you gonna do the slides?
Yeah, I was trying to find them because I have a lot of windows open at the moment. Here we go. Okay. Y'all can see it, right?
Yep.
Okay. That one. Let's take once. All right. So, We Are Nature's End with Logan Simmons, me, and Andrew.
think first I'm going to talk about some of the things that I've worked on in this next week. Can you go to the next slide? So in the last update, someone had mentioned to fit the textures I'm using as parameters. And that allows me to change things in and out really quickly and more easily. And so I figured out how to do that, and I implemented that for all of the different textures that I'm using. And this isn't showing all of them. But I did kind of reorganize how I mapped out all of the textures before, and it works a lot more cleanly now. So let's go to the next slide. The thing I've really been trying to get to work this week is adding some new paintable textures to the ground so that we can manually define certain areas as different biomes, because we have kind of the lowland grass and dirt, and then above snow and rocks. But I wanted to be able to like set more easily recognizable areas. So I have this patch on the right that's moss, and I have a patch on the left that is sand. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have been looking for a sand texture pack, but there's only one on the Unreal Marketplace, and it's, I think, 12 gigabytes, and all of the sand textures except for one are 8K. Now, each 8K texture is over 120 megabytes of data. So I've not been able to get those put on GitHub. It's been exceedingly difficult to work with this, and I'm actually considering just removing the sand feature from this altogether, because it does not work with our current ability to share files. It also takes probably 4 times as long for my computer to render these textures. And I can't hardly work on it with the sand textures. So unless I can find in the next week a much more low resolution sand texture, that's not going to be, we're not going to end up having deserts like we had originally planned in our final product, because it's making the development process take way too long. So that's a major issue that I've encountered. The moss works fine. It's one of the pre-rendered textures that comes in the starter pack. We can go to the next slide. I have been able to pull a selection of grasses that look good together for kind of like a prairie style. And as you can see, there are those 6 in the top. And I've kind of worked in densities for each of those to kind of give this scrubby lowlands feel. Though currently they are static images, I do have the animation vectors for them, but I haven't painted them with that yet. I'm still working on that since the sand has been taking up a majority of my time.
For our game update for what we're going to try to figure out this coming week is figuring out the issues with our mini box game. I'm still working on that issue that we had before. Seems to not be doing parameter set. And then while also doing some research on other game ideas, because maybe a shooter, a game. I'm really and I'll now pass it on to Kyle, going to talk about what to expect.
So some of the goals we have before the final presentation for the next few weeks, or the next 2 weeks, is next week to debug the cube game, add at least one more mini game into this, get the biomes kind of more thoroughly made out, and I'm trying to get 3D movement for AI. And there was something else I was currently working on, but I realized it's not going to be something that's possible, at least how I was going with it. So wasted work. Yeah. And let me pull up the demo, which so far, all I was really able to get into the actual demo itself was another movement AI, and also we were working on at least figuring out how the textures work over there, but yeah. So, new deer. And yeah, over here we were, at least I was testing out the textures and see if they would load well. So yeah, but this should just be the grass, not the moss that I think everyone everywhere else has. There's a little bit of the snow, I think, still, and I believe the sand was giving me the most issue still, so that's also something we got to figure out again. So, but other than that, any questions?
It looks like there was a question for you guys over in chat.
Eric was asking if the material is automatically painted and also you can paint it, and the answer is yes. In the material, I have it set as a layer blend between the it's called ground, which is the first automatic setting, and that's what it defaults to. And ground is the contextual paint. But you can also select any of the grass, the dirt. The grass texture is actually two textures that are being multiplied together because it's grass and I think rocks or gravel because it makes it a little bit darker. I'm using the alpha channel on that. So if you paint grass, it doesn't really look the same. But yeah, you can overwrite what the ground is, and that's stored in the shader sheets that are attached to each of the materials that's involved. And also the grasses are not dynamically shaded. I've only been using static lights in my testing of them, and they don't work with the shadows and stuff yet. There are, like I said, I have all the code for that came with the pack, but I haven't been able to implement it yet because you have to add that to the blueprints, and I'm not entirely sure how to do that currently. Are there any other questions?
Okay. Okay, thank you guys. Let's mission control. Why don't you guys take it away next? Thank you.
All right. Let's see here. All right. Everything visible?
Awesome.
Looks good, like the fox.
All right. So we're mission control. It's me, Cody, Landon, and Tony. So over the last couple weeks, we've been making some pretty dramatic changes to our map outside of the cave area. We Landon went and in the landscape editor lowered the map around the outside of the cave by about 6,000-ish units because we wanted to give the impression that the cave that you came out of was on top of a mountain. That actually ended up causing some issues with the kill Z value in the world settings was around I think -1,000 and we were at -6,000. So we had to lower the kill Z value, but then we kept running into places on the map where you would stumble below the kill Z value again. So I actually ended up having to just take the entire map, select every object at the same time, and then move it all up by about 6,000 units. which caused surprisingly fewer issues than I thought it was going to. We've made some modifications to the forest floor. We've also added more noise onto it so that it looks more natural and like hilly and bumpy instead of just being flat. The side of the mountain, we've added a switchbacks path, and that's just like, you know, it kind of zigzags down the side of the mountain. So it looks like a more semi-natural like slope down the side of the mountain instead of just being a really long ramp. We've set up the forest in such a way that we kind of partitioned off a part around the path through it that is like the accessible part of the forest, and the rest of it isn't accessible because we want it to be able to hand decorate like part of the forest, like to look as good as we wanted it to, but doing that for the entire forest, especially considering when most of it probably was never actually going to be seen, considering the way this project works, it would be kind of infeasible. We've added a lot of grass. I was talking with Andrew in chat about how that was destroying my FPS when I was testing that, but it doesn't. It also just doesn't have any shadows anymore. So
Eric, since you brought up FPS, I've got to ask: are you holding yourself to 144 frames per second as your standard that you're shooting for?
no, I'm not.
Sorry, man. You're never gonna live that down.
No, I'm not.
Sorry.
You're never gonna let me get past it. But
I'm never gonna let you get past it. I'm sorry. Keep going. I apologize.
But anyway, a lot of the big mushroom trees that we showed off last time, we've basically covered the forest with that so that it kind of forms a canopy, and we've set it up such that like when you come out of the cave, you look down onto the forest, and it's kind of like the bottom of the forest is occluded by a canopy of these large mushrooms, but then when you go down under it, like it's all just very shadowed underneath the mushrooms, kind of like you'd see in an actual forest where like you go in there and like you're mostly like in shadows because all the trees are blocking the sunlight. We've also added some of our lamp trees to the forest floor to provide some lighting down in there. And we were prototyping a particle system for fog that like reacts to the player like walking through it, but we haven't ironed it out enough that we've got it implemented in the map yet. So this is kind of a quick overview of what it looks like from kind of right outside the cave. As you can see the canopy of mushroom trees. This is a top view of those switchbacks I was talking about, and this is a bottom view of it. You can kind of see the slope down the mountain looks a bit more like you'd see probably on a real life trail than just like a straight ramp down, or just jumping off of a cliff since, you know, there's no fall damage. But anyway, moving on to, I think it was Landon was doing this bit.
Yeah, so this is a, sorry, I'm getting a feedback. So you see how we've added more like a noise to make it look sort of more natural for the forest. We've also added like, see, you can see how dark the giant shroom trees make the map. So we've had to implement some sort of light, or else you just wouldn't be able to see where you're going. And I don't know if y'all can see this, but on the very edges, there's you can kind of see where you think a wall kind of is. It's kind of like where we've tried to make it inaccessible for the players to go over that. That way we can decorate them better. Can you go to the next slide, Eric? And these are just examples of the two bioluminescent trees that Eric's created. I had to make blueprints for them. That way we didn't have to put like the point lights on every single one. I could just use the blueprint, and that way I didn't have to formulate it for each single tree.
I only made one of those, by the way. I totally stole the other one off the internet.
Oh, okay. I know Eric made the blue one, so all right. I believe Tony was next.
Can you hear me?
There he is.
This is the entrance of the lift, and this is like what we're working. So like we're gonna have decorate around on the lake and just kind of basically decorate around it. And you go to the next slide. Yeah, this is the fog we've been working on along with the lake. And right now that we're still working on it, so it's not currently implemented, but right now it does collide with the player. Like there's like when you walk through it, there's a path that it leaves, and it also pushes away from you and kind of leaves like a drift off effect. However, like it's not really fully like fine tuned. So right now, when you walk through it, it goes to the left, right, and the front. But the little drift off effect that fog kind of has is only really happening on the left side. So we're trying to get all of that ironed out. And also with the fog, like when you view it from a really far like distance, it looks a bit hazy and isn't rendering really like correctly. So while you're up close to it, it looks perfectly fine. But say you're coming to it from a distance, it just doesn't look very good at the moment. So it's still like a work in progress.
All right, so the planned work, and can you guys hear me, by the way? Just checking.
Yeah.
All right, sick. I wasn't sure because my headset was kind of bugging out earlier. Until the next showcase, we're going to be working on these things. We're going to work on finishing the forest up, you know, getting any like fine details in there. We might have some particle effects floating around, like maybe some like little bits of dust here and there, maybe some fog just throughout the forest. We'll see. We're gonna add some other decorations to the lake area because right now the lake is just kind of like water and then like some grass around it. But that's just because we've been focusing on the forest. Like we're gonna focus on the lake now. That's like the next part of our project. We're gonna add a fog effect to some parts of the map. You might have seen the fog in the last picture. We're probably gonna like take that. We might apply it to like the lake on a bigger scale, like just cover the surface of the lake in like a thinner white fog. We might like maybe that would look good. We might put some fog in the cave, maybe in the like parts of the forest somewhere. I don't know. We'll see what looks good and we'll implement it there. We're gonna get some light shafts working inside the forest. So like some god rays coming down through the mushroom trees. That would look like really, really good. And we're going to iron out any remaining issues with the map.
All right. So let me switch over to Unreal. Is this still visible? I think I shared my whole screen instead of just a window.
Yeah.
We can see it.
All right. So just popping in here to play mode. We haven't really done much in the cave since the last time, so I'm not going to retread that ground. I did get this material looking more like the inside of the cave floor. It was a different material out here for whatever reason, but that's not really that big of a change. Coming over here, when we come up over this ledge, and you can see we've added a lot of grass along the ground, like a lot of grass, probably an unnecessary amount, but it looks cool, so who cares? You can come here and you can see, like, looking down into the forest, it's just completely occluded by this tree cover, which I just think is a neat effect personally. And then we've got this path down the mountain, which, you know, if you were to do it like you were supposed to, you would go back and forth down the path. But for the sake of time, considering I know we have other people that need to go, I'm just going to abuse the fact that we haven't implemented fall damage and just dump down the side of the mountain. But you can see where, you know, you go back and forth and there's decorations on the end caps and such.
Fall damage is a bad mechanic. We don't need it.
Yeah, dude. It's 2021. Who needs fall damage anymore? But anyway, now that we actually get into the forest, you can kind of see what we were describing earlier with like the forest floor is pretty much covered in shadow, like from all the trees above, like with just parts of like bits of light coming through the cracks in the tree cover. We have these lamp trees that are giving off red and bluish light along the forest floor. We might tune the intensity of that or not. I don't know. It's just like it's kind of hard to see the bluish ones, but the red ones are pretty obvious. So you just follow along this path for a ways. Looking up at the decoration because that's really what we got going in here. To get all of this in here, we used for all the large mushroom trees like this, you're using the foliage painter and the grass the same. For the big trees, since they're large enough, you can't really use like the cluster painting of it. You have to just place them individually. But I just spam clicked all over the place, and then the grass you can just kind of paint clumps of grass. You can set the density up and then just paint it along the side. We actually have like a lot of grass varieties that we're using for this because I think it was Landon added a like a foliage pack. It had like some 16 types of grass in it. I just threw all of them into the foliage painter, which might not be the greatest for performance, but it looks cool, so who cares? And we come out of the forest into the lake area, and you can see the grass kind of extends around the side, and the water reflects a little bit, but we don't actually have much else in terms of decoration around here, and that's something we're going to hopefully get added into the next sprint. And we're also probably going to try and add a post-processing volume underneath the lake because presently, when you walk under here, it's just the ground. But you know, we're working on it. That's pretty much what we got so far. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them now.
Yeah, Andrew, actually, we were thinking about adding at one point some sort of like day-night cycle. We're not sure if we're going to go with that. We'll see if it's like in the best interests of, you know, our time. If we have time for it, we'll shoot for it. But if not, you know, we won't have time to implement it. But we'll see what happens.
Okay, guys, literally, this is awesome. The view, as you're on the path looking down on the mushroom forest is just awesome looking. I mean, that just looks incredible. So good work. Please keep it up.
Thank you.
Okay, were there any other final questions for these guys before we move on? Okay, let's move on now. Myconoids, you guys are up next. Myconoids.
Can you guys hear me all right?
We can see you and we can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, if you give me 1 second, I want to pull up where is it? That's okay. Oh, here we go. Alan, did you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. All right. We got the mushroom ones. Machinoids, Alan King, Vivian Carr, and everyone else. Jonah and Stephanie. All right. So the previous sprint recap, we were working on more of the asset creations, rigging, and implementing of the new player model, which we have done, and adding simple gameplay as well.
Just to carry on, so a little bit of what we've been working on modeling wise, we've created the Savannah. We created a alternate version of the Savannah fungal tree that we showed off from the last sprint. I've also created another fungal, like a fungus bush, you could say, and then we're going to talk more about the player model rig. So first off, here's an image of the original Savannah tree and how it looked. I've created an alternate one. As you can see, it's more sideways, of course, and you can see here's another angle of it. Another model that was created is this fungal bush of sorts. So we can use that to populate our Savannah area more, so it looks more interesting and unique again. I see that there's a chat message. Thank you, Andrew. But let me just hand this off to Jonah so he can talk more about the character model.
So when we were doing the character model, we're gonna have to restart it because it turns out rigging is difficult. It's made us have to realize that we're gonna have to change directions on thing, and I want to talk about exactly why we're going to have to do that. And to start with our original model, there's a lot of issues you have to consider from the start when you're creating a character model that we didn't do because we didn't know what we were doing with rigging. And we'll go on to the next slide. We'll show some of them off. There's some issues with warping due to the skeleton. When you use the Unreal skeleton, which I had to recreate bone for bone in order to get it to properly work with the animations that were pre-made, because frankly, we just don't have enough time to make our own animations. There's issues with warping due to certain bones you have to include, as well as floating bits that happen also because of those bones. If you notice the extreme warping on the left hand, that's actually because of a bone that has to be included with the Unreal Engine's default mannequin animations, and exist in order to allow you to equip things like a sword or a gun or whatever. And the issue with the model that I'm planning to try and fix with a new version that I'm going to start from scratch using the skeleton as a basis is that when you bind the bones to the model, if you do it part by part instead of doing it as a whole like I tried to do, then you shouldn't have those warping issues and it should work a bit better. You go on to the next slide, you can see the mannequin I'm going to be using to kind of build things around. So instead of just starting with the model and trying to the model to the skeleton, we're going to start with the skeleton and fit make the model around the skeleton instead. Yeah, it's rough. I tried animating myself for a little bit and then gave up on that and then tried fitting the skeleton to the model, but I'm just gonna have to start from scratch with the model. That being said, though, we go on to the next slide. We're not going to give up hope. We're going to try and take a different direction on the project. The original idea of making all the different creatures and having them move around isn't going to work. We just don't have the time to animate it. We don't have the time to rig it. So instead, we're going to be focusing in more on the flora over the fauna. Because of that, we've had to scrap a lot of things we were working on this particular sprint. But the plan for the future is to focus on getting the environments done, at least statically. And that's going to be the savanna, the watering hole, and the cave. We're going to have flora and fauna, well, just flora for them. So that's going to be more lush trees around the watering hole, the idea of the more bioluminescent, kind of more traditional mushroomy mushrooms in the caves, as well as adding a little bit more to the savanna. Not much, we're just about done there. And then going on from there. So our plans for the next sprint. So we're going to focus in on asset creation, like we said, and we're not going to give up on the player model. We're going to go at it from scratch. I believe I should be able to get that done in time now that I know exactly how to attack it. And would have a demo. We're only down a member right now, and it would just be showing the new features inside the environment, which would be the fungal bush and the new tree.
So Jonah, is there any way that you can include your guy with the funny hands because of the bones, even if you're not using him as the major character, if he's just like sitting over in a corner or something?
I'm thinking
like
of trying that. Yeah, I'd have to do the bones again on him, but my plan is to get a player model working first.
I wouldn't spend any more time on him. Okay, yeah. But I don't want you to erase him from history.
Yeah.
Because not every experiment, and remember, I don't grade these. Your peers do, but I would appeal to your peers to remember not every experiment works out successfully, but you shouldn't penalize people for trying to do something that's very hard just because they don't succeed 100%. So I think this little guy and the fact of what you guys tried to do is good. Include him. Don't put any more work in it.
Okay.
But include him there because it's something you guys did, and
okay.
You put a lot of work into it, and you know I applaud the effort to do something really hard. Just because you didn't succeed 100% doesn't mean the effort wasn't worth it. You learned a lot from the experience. So that's my, I don't grade these things, but that would be my appeal to your peers that hopefully you guys will keep that in mind when you review the project. And we'll leave the little man in there as a reminder of about 8 weeks of work, 6 weeks of work. Okay.
I think what we'll do is we'll put them in the cave, like behind a wall or something.
Exactly.
Jonah, if you want, I can actually show on the Discord the animation of these so they can
Yeah,
see how
yeah.
funky it got. Okay, let me just.
We had them as videos, but it wasn't showing up properly in the presentation.
Yeah, let me go ahead and
Discord for it.
Discord. Okay, there we go.
It is
Can
a
you guys
little
see this all right?
entertaining. It just
The
he's moving.
clipping.
And that
And
was
then-
for the jump landing and the walk.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was just issues with the overlay bones, which would allow you to have weapons and whatnot attached to it, attaching themselves to the model itself, which caused all that warping.
Got it.
Are there any questions for our group?
Okay. All righty. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Again, good work. Again, not everything has to work out perfectly. Good work. Okay, Haunting Guild, you guys are up next.
All right. I just showed on the screen. Can everyone see this okay?
Looks good.
All right. We are Haunting Guild. This is our project update 5. The overview again. Main concept is an open world exploration with a day-night cycle, various land areas, working on some procedural weather effects. The idea again is, friendly NPCs during the daytime, hostile supernatural NPCs at night. And then, we're going to implement searching for items during the day and like a survival style gameplay at nighttime. So currently I'm working on weather effects, day-night cycle, character model integration, and source control, but I think the source control we pretty much got down. We've been using Perforce for several weeks now, and other than just some minor stuff trying to figure out how to use it, it's worked really well. Matthew's working on environment building and topography, and Jerome is working on landscaping and NPCs. So this is what I've been working on most recently, is sort of refining the day-night cycle. There aren't a lot of great tutorials for this online, or if there are, they're very simplified. Like it's just, how do you make the sun go around underneath and back out the other side? Which fine, but that's not always what you want to do. There are a couple issues with that, like depending on how you made your map, when the sun is underneath it, you still may have some light coming through that or reflecting from the bottom back upwards, which is a problem that we were definitely having. There is sort of a cheat for that, make a solid layer and put it underneath your map that blocks light. I didn't really want to do that, so I found a tutorial for another option that allowed you to create some booleans for day and night, store that so that whenever night happens, whenever the sun hits a certain part of the horizon, it triggers that and turns off the light. So right now it just sort of turns it off, but I'm going to replace that with sort of a dimming effect rather than just off. But that also, having these events is going to allow us to do a lot of other things with how we populate NPCs and trigger some other events and cinematics that I'd like to add for the nighttime. This is just a basic example of how the event trigger works. Yeah, right now it's just taking the light source, setting the component either to a 0 or pi, which is the default intensity for the light source. Let's see here. And Matthew, if you want to talk about the topography.
Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right. So I've been working on trying to get a river through basically most of our playable area. Unreal has a plugin, a water plugin that I used. It's a pain if you've got a landscape that you don't want to change and stuff. In which case you have to basically manually like say, okay, I want the river to go here, 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 and it takes a very long time. I'm still running into problems in which parts of my river are too high, so they kind of like, whenever they stop, it's like a wall of water and then it's ground. So I'm going to need to try to fix that a little bit. So that way it's either better or it's not noticeable. And if you go to the next slide, I've also added some rocks, which you can't really see. Actually, you can actually see one right next to the building. But I littered some rocks a little everywhere. I tried seeing if I could use rocks along the river at some point to try to mask that wall of water whenever it got too deep, but I'm not sure if I want to place it around the entire river though, because that might look bad. I'm not sure yet. So yeah, that's basically it for that.
Okay, so hi, I'm Jerome. I've been working on a general movement AI for all NPCs. I'm pretty close to done with implementation, but I still have to add some small things and do some testing and make sure everything's working properly. Once this is complete, making NPCs move around the map will be a whole lot easier. So it would take having to do a different movement AI for each NPC off of the table. And Blake, you can go ahead to the next slide. Also, I plan on working on specific AIs for certain animals, like the deers and wolves we have now, because I want to use each of their unique animations. And yeah, that's pretty much all I've been working on. And now we will show you all the demo that we have.
This is just a brief little demo of some updates to the day-night cycle as well as the water effects area.
I wish I could jump like that in real life.
See the sun rising again over here.
You guys' landscape does look quite nice.
That's pretty much it. So if there's any questions, we have to take those.
Okay. All right, thanks, guys. Next up, we've got Graphical Insanity. They're going to give a short talk, short presentation, and then I want to close by showing you guys something you may have run into, maybe may have not, but I thought it was really interesting, so I wanted to share that with you guys. But first, Graphical Insanity, you guys want to say a few words?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. All right. So my name is Alex. I'm part of Graphical Insanity, and these past couple weeks we haven't really been able to do much. But just to give a little little perspective of what we have working since the last presentation, we got hitboxes working, so our little ship, our little model can actually contact services and reflect off of them. And we're currently working on lighting and trying to get that working underwater for the model. Now, Evan, what are you about to say?
Oh, we have a short presentation. Dr. O'Neill, if you wouldn't mind giving Alex the screen privilege for just a moment.
Do I have the presentation?
Yeah, it should be shared with you.
Well, I don't have it, man. If you have it, I'll try to get it real quick. Okay, I got it. Okay. All right, I'll share then.
Do you need screen shared? You got it.
Yeah, I got it. All right, cool. Oh shoot, let me. There we go. And present over here. Cool. All right, I didn't know we had a slide. All right, so Graphical Insanity, Alex, Evan, and David. Sprint recap. We got the landscape height map. We got water effects. Trying to get the drone really fixed up and whatnot, and we got a mini map working.
And that was for the previous sprint for the midterm. This is just kind of a recollection of the things we did get working and prepared.
Yes.
And so this is what. Oh, I'm sorry, Alex. Do you mind if I take this part?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. So this sprint, these last 2 weeks, the minimal amount of work we have actually managed to get done is Alex did manage to get the collision fixed that David spoke about in our last presentation, which is good. And I'm currently working on the landscape. In the next week, I hope to have the landscape completely finished. David is exploring the drone animation. We've hit a little bit of trouble in that regard, but hopefully in the next week as well, that should be fixed. And we're also exploring bubbles, currents, other different water effects to be added to make the environment a little bit more believable.
All right. And then plans for next sprint. We want to finish and combine our efforts during the Mardi Gras break, and then flesh out gameplay if we have time. And then I can go ahead and show a little bit of what we have. Now, this is from my branch, so I don't have like David's compass on the top left or anything. But
actually, I hate to do this to you, but I did want to show something, and you told me that you guys are going to have a really brief presentation. So
yeah, we sort of saw that everyone was doing a demo, so we really wanted to try it out too. So all right, that's fine. All right,
I'll save you guys from that. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, what I wanted to show here in the last 5 minutes was something that I ran across in my news feed yesterday. Or maybe it was the day before. And it is a plugin for Unreal called MetaHuman. I don't know if any of you have heard about this thing, but here's what they're doing.
I could be one of many. Je pourrais être architecte. You create the narrative. I am MetaHuman.
And this is all in Unreal. This is just a new human creation tool that they've got. I mean, look at the close-up of that guy's face. I mean, with all the wrinkles and everything. I mean, I think the old people look way better, way more realistic than the than the smooth younger people. And there was one more. Hold on.
That is usually covered by her phone has finally made an appearance.
There's one more. It's kind of more of the same, but it's a little longer. But it just gives you more of an idea. These are fully rigged, too.
I am a metahuman, the next generation of digital humans powered by Unreal Engine. Metahumans are high-fidelity digital characters created by you, the user, on our new content creation platform, Metahuman Creator. I am fully rigged, ready for animation and motion capture, allowing you to work in context. With everything running live in Unreal Engine,
that is
my motion
insane.
seamlessly
On other characters. I have 8 levels of detail and have been tested on a wide range of hardware platforms, from feature film to mobile. If you're interested in learning about my animation rig or high-fidelity deformations, build on control. The new strand-based hair system via the Groom component, or how everything is tied together and animated in sequencer. Then have a look under the hood in this project. This is just a glimpse of things to come.
So yeah, I really wanted to take a sec to show you guys, cancel, to show you guys that, because I thought that was worth it. One second. James, stop this crazy thing. But yeah, I don't know. It is Unreal. I don't know if it's out yet. Someone said, you know, share the link. All you need to do is Google MetaHuman Unreal, and everything will pop up about it. MetaHuman, not metal. MetaHuman, and it looks like it's just it looks like it's just another like tool that's going to be available in standard Unreal. So I can't wait to see what my students are going to do in this class next year when that's available. But anyway, you know, if it's, you know, look around. I saw one video that seemed to be somebody playing with it, so maybe it is out in beta. You know, maybe it is available. But take a look at it. I thought that was fun. You guys try to enjoy your Mardi Gras holiday. I know, pandemic and cold weather, so I know it sucks for you guys. But try to have some fun, and I'll see you guys on Friday. Okay? Take care, and if there are any questions, I'll stick around to answer any questions you guys might have. Otherwise, have a great break. Bye-bye.